Welcome back to Marco's Paper Top 12 Christmas Favorites. And today we're going to be showing you several ways to use gelatos. And I'm going to start off with using the new double scoop gelato. It is the same formulation as the regular gelato, it's just twice the size. So you can get more coverage in a shorter amount of time. On my cardstock here I have white embossed a holly pattern, and you're going to see that appear as I use my gelato. I'm just going to go ahead and rub right on here. Gelatos are a pigment stick and they remind me a lot of chapstick. And then I'm going to blend by adding just a little bit of water. And I'm just going to use my finger. You can use a sponge if you'd like. But gelatos are water soluble, so they come off your fingers very easily and wipe off of your surface. Our craft mat here, it wipes off very easily. And I can go back, add a little bit more color. And I won't totally finish it, but this will give you an idea of how that's going to look. And some of my gelato did rest on top of my embossing. And you can use a paper towel, you can use a baby wipe. The baby wipe tends to take off a little bit more color, so it just kind of depends upon the look that you want. I can also clean up my surface. And I'm just going to ink around the edges with peacock feathers that match this gelato color fairly well. And just hitting the edges with my blending tool and foam just to give that edge a little bit of highlight. And there's my background. Now I also can use gelato on some seam binding. Really the same process. Swipe my gelato on the ribbon. Use a little bit of water and my finger. And you can set it aside to dry, or you can use your heat tool if you need to speed the drying time up. And one last thing before I show you the finished product. I have a wood veneer shape, and I can color right on there with my gelato. Put a little water on my craft mat. Can actually paint to blend the gelato color. Can add a little bit more if you need to. And just clean that right off on your paper towel. And we use distress glitter in one of our other videos. And the picked raspberry matches this pink gelato very well. And it's nice to have that same color underneath the glitter. I'm just going to apply a little glossy accents. Rub that around with my finger. tap off the excess glitter. So we have a glittered shape there. And my finished project, I used my cinch and just made a little notepad here with lined paper. And for my pink background page, I used that pink gelato that same way. Cut my holly piece just a little smaller, added my ribbon and my glittered Christmas tree. Now Debbie has another way or two to use gelatos.
Today I am going to use gelatos, just showing you on grunge paper. These are actually die cut poinsettia pieces from the Tim Holtz collection, and I have a couple different ones here. I have one of the larger poinsettia leaves and the medium poinsettia leaf. On the medium poinsettia leaf, I've embossed it, so it has some texture to it. On this one, as well as part of this one, I've applied gesso to it because I just want to show you the difference from using your gelatos on a gessoed piece versus a non-gessoed piece. And grunge paper, which is what I've cut this from, is a fairly porous material, so when you use your wet inks, like the distress stains, they do soak in a little bit more, so that just means it's more porous. So since we use water often with gelatos, the tendency is then for that to soak in. What the gesso does is that will coat your surface, and it will create a surface for you to paint on, color on, that isn't going to absorb. So let me show you my colors here, and just to give you an idea of with and without texture. We'll start with this one. And so first, when I color, I usually use multiple colors. I'm going to use the gelato, and it is the buttercream. So it's a nice pale yellow, and I'll color just roughly in, I don't need total coverage on there, but I want to use my finger, and I'm not going to use water, as you'll see on this. I'm just going to use my finger, and already I think you can see the difference between the piece that has the gesso on it and the piece that doesn't. You can see a lot more of a gray tone coming through the gelato. Then I want to add my second color. We're going to give this kind of a coral look to it. So I'm just going to color down the middle of my petal in a kind of a rough manner. And once again, I'm just going to use my fingers, and I'm going to take my gelato color down the middle, and then I'll go out a little bit in the shape of a flower leaf. And you can see how that works. And then we'll go over this last one that does not have the gesso on it. And you can't quite tell as much over the video, however, I can tell that it doesn't move quite as easily as the area that's been gessoed. And you can probably see the color difference between the white background of the gesso that holds the medium versus the background of the grunge paper that tends to absorb more. So I'm just going to show you a little bit here on this piece that's been texturized with one of the embossing folders. We'll go ahead and color in, and the gelato's just like a little chapstick, like Chris said. You can just twist that, have your gelato come out. In addition to your finger, you can always use the little sponges that come with the sets of gelatos or sponge, and that will just smooth your color right into the surface. And when I have a textured piece, I do like to use the sponge because it gets down into the depths a little better. I can get my color down in there. So I can just move that all around. Then I have a nice pale yellow color. And I'll Do the same thing, add a little bit of, this is metallic melon. We'll add a little bit of that to it to get my salmony poinsettia color in here. And I'll just switch corners with my sponge. I'll dab at it with my sponge to spread the color around. And you can see I can get a multi-toned flower. The other thing you can also do with your gelatos is, I have a little more of this salmon around the edges than I want, so I can just go back in, color in my edges, and blend that in a little more to bring back some of the pale yellow color. So you can layer your colors of your gelato over the top of each other. And then here's a finished piece that you can see the texture. I've done all of the leaves in that piece. And one thing that you can also do is, sometimes I like to take my white and I will add some highlights, so I can come back into my piece, just kind of rub over it so I can get some of that texture, so you can see some of the highs and lows of your pieces. Just adds another layer of color and dimension.